Hey everybody, I'm going to do a brief little share today. Um, if you watched my last one of these, you heard me say that I wanted to get into some more techniques. Since that time, I'm really questioning whether or not these platforms or this audience is sort of the right audience for what I'm saying. But I'm still trying to help, even though I'm very confused or sort of like unable to figure out if what I'm doing is helping. But um, if at the least it's helping me, maybe sort of be like a video journal or something, that's at least something. So, what I'm going to share today is something I think everyone needs to practice right now, especially with the bombings of and the genocide and the ecocide, essentially. Because when you bomb people, you bomb the land. Like this is like the thing about colonialism is that it doesn't matter what race you are. Um, you can say that you have a claim to the indigenous, place and still act like a colonizer. And what a colonizer does is it treats bodies and land as if they are property. It's pretty simple. And the fact that so many folks don't understand this, the 8 billion people on the planet, so many folks still don't get these basic indigenous wisdom practices, it really shows me that there's such a long way to go, and we may never get there. But I wanted to share the beginning of the work, which is essentially how to decolonize your perception, how to decolonize your mindset and your worldview and your embodiment. And the biggest thing is that people are being run by their emotions, their sensations, and the stories that they tell themselves about their emotions and sensations. So a really fun one to look at is like grief and rage and sadness, and how those could be traced back to fear and pain, and how we don't like fear and pain, and so we work super hard to try to stop being afraid and feeling pain. And in doing so, we tend to make things worse. We outsource our pain on other people, other bodies, because we cannot understand that these forces within us or moving through us are like a elemental force, and they're not actually what we think they are. But it's really hard to do anything about that, and it's really hard to recognize that your emotions are not telling you the truth on some kind of absolute universal level if you don't have a way to set a baseline that is not necessarily neutral, but it is a baseline by which you could then gather more data or ask other questions. And so the first thing that I want to share today is it is a breathing exercise, because if you're watching this, I can probably guarantee one thing: you are breathing. Your heart is beating and you're breathing. And those are the two things I can pretty much guarantee everyone is doing to some degree, some level of ability. So this is what we're going to do today, and I'll just demonstrate it and I'll talk about it, and then I'll probably leave you with a few more words, and that'll be that. But you're going to want to inhale through your nose deeply. And to do it deeply, you need to do it slowly. And for some people, being able to hear the breath go down the throat is going to be helpful and feel good. And for some people, hearing the breath and feeling the breath is going to feel weird. So this is the first option is this. When you breathe in through your nose, you breathe in very slowly and as deeply as possible, which is to say you want to feel below your belly button expand in 360 degrees. And as you do that, as you draw the air in and down, it will fill up below and press out, and then it will slowly press out more and more until you can feel it in your clavicles, okay? But I'm not asking you to go crazy with this. I'm just saying you're going to breathe in through your nose, either making a kind of reverse Darth Vader kind of sound, only you'll be able to hear it and feel it, or try to do it without hearing anything, silently. Regardless of which road you take, and you can take a different road every other breath, it's fine. It's fun to play with your breath, but you're going to breathe down, and when you come to the deepest part of the breath, you're going to kind of finish strong, like not passively, but like you're trying to sniff. So you're going to breathe in slowly, slowly, slowly. You'll get to a point where like slow and deep won't go anymore. When you get to that place, you can make fists if you want, but what you're going to do is you're going to try to sniff at the end and just hold it for a little bit. And a little bit is relative. So all we're trying to do is breathe in super, super, super deep, sniff a little bit, hold it a little bit, and then when you release, it's like a sigh or a yawn. Okay, so I'll do it with you. Let's go. It doesn't matter how long it takes. We're not saying it has to be a 4 count or a 5 count or a 10 count or anything like that. It's based on what your body can do right now. So we're going to go in. And now notice how you feel. You should feel like a wave of blood flow and relaxation. And let's do that 2 more times on your own pace. Okay, so breathing in slowly, deeply. Sniff. One more time. So now that we're a little bit more relaxed, we'll talk about some variations, okay? Because you want to be able to do this stuff all the time. Some of you are going to protests a lot now. You're going to protests. I don't fuck around with protests because I can't trust people to not get my ass arrested. Then I can't take my medicine. Then when my symptoms go crazy or something because I can't get what I need, drink enough water, blah, blah, blah. But some of you are going to be going to protest. You're going to be yelling. You're going to be chanting. You're going to be walking around for hours in a state of heightened stress and fear and anxiety and like feverish solidarity. And you need to be able to come back to baseline at any time. You need to be able to stop the peer pressure that's happening around you. It's nervous system peer pressure. It's a kind of hypervigilant state of excitation and activation based in fight or flight. And this is what colonialism thrives on. I don't care if you think that you're a freedom fighter. If you can't do this simple coming back to real baseline at a moment's notice, you're a danger. You're a danger to yourself, you're a danger to others, regardless of what side you think you're on. So, first step is breathing slowly, deeply, expanding 360 degrees, trying to do a little sniff at the end of it, holding it a little bit, just a little bit until you feel like, woo, And then you relax, you relax, you relax, you relax. And maybe you express all the air in your lungs or maybe not. So that's the first tip, is focusing on the exhale and making the exhale last a long time. It's going to put you back into parasympathetic, going to put you back into sort of rest and digest. If you can add some humming to that, that might be good for your system. The next step is recognizing that if you don't control your breath, you can't control anything. If you can't come to a controlled interplay with your breath, change it. If you can't change your breath on command, you really can't do the basics of animist work. Let's just put it really frankly. Because animist work is not mental at its root. We think about it after, but the first step is always the body and the body's experience of being the land. Let me put it to you straight. It's not the body like some separate entity from the land. It's the body, the land. It's the body is land. You need the water and the air and the earth around you to survive. You are made up of those components. So playing these breathing games is a direct relational play with the basic elements of your nature, which number one is air. Number one is atmosphere or air or whatever you want to call it, sky, whatever. So if you can't do that basic thing, it's really kind of a moot point, whatever you're trying to do. It's like, well, you mean well, but so does everybody. So who fucking cares? So you're going to breathe in, and you breathe in deep, you breathe in long. The slower you breathe, the more chance that the tissues in your lungs can expand and take in oxygen. When you breathe shallowly, it doesn't give the tissues enough time to absorb the air because the lungs are like a sponge. Imagine a very, very dry sponge, and you put some water in it. Notice how long it takes for the water to absorb into the dry sponge. Notice that, right? We've all had like a dried up old dish sponge, and we have to it takes some time to absorb the water. This is also what is happening in the lungs. The lungs are not empty sack, like empty plastic bags or something. You just fill them up like balloons with air. That's not how it works. The lungs are fibrous. They have fibrous nerve endings and tissues and veins. They are meaty on some level. They have a density to them like a sponge. So as we breathe slowly and descend the diaphragm, that's why we're breathing deep. It's so the diaphragm can move down and the lungs have more space to also move down. This is very key because when the diaphragm is up, too far up and stressed out, and the lungs are pressed up, the heart also gets really jacked up. So what we're trying to do is get more space so that the heart the pericardium can have better circulation, so that the lungs can descend, have better circulation under the ribs, in the sides, in the back. It's not just the front, but you can't see my hands. And then all the other organs can also move down, okay? Because being held up is like antithetical to gravity on some level, and it takes energy to sort of hold everything tight up. So the first thing that we're trying to do is tell the body it's okay to have a buoyancy that has down shifting, like down directional qualities. Right? And we have to sometimes do a little bit of work to get that happening, which is why the sniffing and the using of energy in order to get a greater release or exhalation downward that changes the body's biochemistry, right? So you breathe in, hold it a little bit, Breathe out, breathe out, breathe out, breathe out, breathe out. Right? You're not trying to go into Wim Hof territory here. You're not trying to hyperventilate and have a psychedelic effect. You're just trying to feel this big expansion and big exhalation and ride that wave. Now, something I want you to focus on before you try different things with the breathing, because of course we have the inhalation, we have the pause at the top, we have the exhalation, we have the pause at the bottom. Those are the 4 parts of the breath, right? Before I want you to play with anything other than that, we're just going to do some other work with the mouth, okay? So as you breathe, I want you to either bite a pen or a pencil so you create this kind of face. And you breathe through the nose. So that's one way to do it, is just to create it mechanically with your mouth that way, I guess. But the other way is to smile on purpose. Just smile for no reason. It can be a little smile. Just a little smile. Or it can be a real smile. Just like this. And that's what you do with the breath. What you're doing inside the mouth is slightly different. So you won't be able to see this, but I'll just sort of explain it. You want to press your tongue to the roof of your mouth. You can't see it, and I have a very short tongue. So you're pressing your tongue to the roof of your mouth, like a firm press. And then you're smiling. And you're breathing through your nose. You can close your eyes or you can open them. I'm keeping them open for the sake of this video. But whatever works for you. So smile, tongue on the roof of the mouth, teeth probably a little bit open, not like clenched, like open teeth. Sometimes your teeth will clench, and that's fine, but you don't want to be grinding your teeth. Okay? And then breathing through the nose. Your eyes can be open or closed. You can hear the Darth Vader sound on the inhale if you want to, or you can try to do it completely silently. They have different effects for the body and the mind, right? So you do that 2, 3, 4 times. At a certain point, you'll feel some kind of shift. And you might even feel it in the middle of the breathing. Like on the top of the inhale, you might feel the body wanting to clench, make undulations, or like stretching like a cat. And that stretching like a cat is not like yoga stretching or like passive stretching. It's an active kind of wringing out of the muscles. You know, it's like a kind of stretch and movement that's like more like a snake, like undulating. And there's a pressure. There's a pressure and a release. You know, there's like muscles are involved. And as you do this more and more, you might find that your body wants to lay down or like move in a very different way and hold different positions, like the pelvis in a different position, maybe a little twist, and then you're keeping doing the breathing, and that'll get into different areas of the body and you'll feel different things, right? And that you can do any time, but obviously the more active you get, as in the more undulations and pandiculations that your body wants to do, the more you might feel very self-conscious and realize that you should do this at home in the morning and at night. You should do this kind of thing as a practice, not as an accident, but be deliberate about training your nervous system to go from whatever state it's currently in to a different state that feels better on command. Because if you don't know how it feels to feel grounded and centered, you won't know how to do that quickly with your mind. Okay, so that's the key here, is that I'm teaching you this very simple, real embodiment practice using the breath and the natural undulation of the cerebrospinal fluid and the nerves and the tissues and the fascia in order so that you can create a somatic memory of what it feels like to feel good at any time, regardless of what's happening. Like, I gotta pay the bills, and then I gotta pick up the kid from school, and then I have this deadline. Yeah. You're always gonna have something. But most people, especially Western colonized motherfucking people, they're always thinking about some magical future that's going to happen. Someday where they can feel good. After capitalism, after I make $1 million, after I find a loving partner, after my kids go to college. You see, it's always this thing about the goalpost is constantly moving, and you never take a moment to actually realize that you have agency. And this kind of agency is not something you can learn from a yoga class, because that's still something you went and had to pass through a number of gatekeepers to get to. For instance, first you have to find a yoga class that you can afford. This is already a class system, gatekeeping system. You have to have the right clothes to go to the yoga class, right? You have to go to the yoga class at the right time, because if it doesn't work for you, you can't go because of the timing. So that's already issues. Maybe transportation is an issue. Maybe you're going through a sickness, and the way that your body is creating discharge odors makes everyone around you feel weird, and they don't like you. But it's not your fault, because you're processing some shit in your liver or gallbladder or something, and you're trying to get better, but it makes you smell funny. So all of these things are barriers to entry for learning. Supposedly, what yoga is supposed to do is teach you this kind of stuff. But in the West, we have all of these barriers. All of these barriers to you having embodied agency. And it's really tiring watching the weaponization of emotions on social media, because you would think somehow that what's happening now, this outrage that's targeted at Israel and Palestine, is somehow new. It's somehow like a new thing that's been going on. And as a descendant of Puerto Ricans, let me tell you, this shit ain't fucking new. This shit is super basic. Like, it's been happening since my whole life. I'm 44, and like, being a mixed race person in the beginning of the 80s was not some kind of fun thing to be. It was definitely not like safe. So, everyone's got a thing, and it's been happening for a long time. And so when we look on social media and we see the government of Israel weaponizing their grief about the Holocaust against Arab people, and then some of those Arab people, like Hamas, are weaponizing their grief and rage in a different way, and then we have social media people kind of pretending that taking the right side is doing something particularly meaningful, and if you don't do it, then they're going to weaponize their pain, trauma, fear on you. This is immaturity. This is peak colonization immaturity. This is not wisdom, people. This is not wisdom. You can be angry and still be grounded. Did you know that? You could feel grief and still be centered and not weaponize it against other people. Do you know that it's possible? Do you know that it's possible to feel both happy and sad at the same time? Do you know it's possible to be grateful to be alive and also understand that dying sometimes is a relief? Do you get that? Like, do you understand that life is so complementary and powerfully linked that you can feel multiple things at the same time? Do you know that? Like, it's not a paradox. It's not. It's not a contradiction. It's not a paradox. You see, paradox and contradiction exist in the mind of a person with very limiting perception. When your mind is colonized by dualism, capitalism, colonialism, white supremacy, patriarchy, racism, sexism, you have low self-worth, low self-esteem. You don't understand the basics of grounding or being with the earth. You don't understand that your body is earth. You don't feel that on a deep level every single fucking day of your life. When you don't have any of that shit, your mind, your perceptions, your senses, they're colonized. It's period. That's it. And you have to decolonize your senses. And by decolonizing your senses, you realize that a lot of these words that people made up to describe their confusion, being a colonized person, they're totally nonsense. It's total nonsense. A paradox is just saying, I perceive a paradox. A contradiction is just saying, I perceive a contradiction. Whereas nature does not perceive contradictions. It does not perceive paradoxes. It just exists. And the existing has diversity inside of it. And so what makes all the colonized people believe that their emotions are even theirs? That's like trees believing that they own the birds that fly on them. My birds. These are my birds. You can't have them. They sit in my nest in my tree, and I'm the tree, and you can't have the fucking birds. This is the stupidity of what we're seeing right now. It's really bad. Because in the reality is that all the earth is working together to create some kind of balance. And there's no ownership mentality. There's just beings coexisting and being interdependent in symbiotic relationships. And that applies to your thoughts, emotions, and sensations, right? Like basic. You can just think of your emotions as birds or weather patterns or like rain or snow or, sunshine is happiness. It's very basic. We teach this to kids, right? But when we grow up, we think that emotions are some special separate thing that we own and that are real. And they're only real in the sense that we have an experience and then we name that experience. But what we're seeing now with all this bullshit, all this war, genocide, profiteering, it's like war profiteering, right? We're seeing people not understand the fundamentals of emotion and then not being able to work together because the sides can't come to a agreement that everyone deserves to have a life, And unfortunately, I don't think a bunch of stressed out so-called progressives are going to do much. Like, I just don't feel like it's a real exercise in wisdom these days. I think that we're just all reacting and we're freaking out, and then we're wondering how we can get more money so that we can go to a doctor because we have hypertension. It's like, of course we have fucking hypertension. Like, because we don't control our reactions to how stressful and painful it is in the 21st century. Duh. Of course some people are going to go binge eat because of that and then develop something like diabetes. Of course that's going to happen. Of course some people are going to turn to harder drugs like crack and heroin to kind of numb out. Of course some people are going to drink. Of course some people are going to go on like a sex binge and be codependent lovers. Of course that's going to happen because all of these are just ways to deal with how deeply uncomfortable we are. And we're all going to do them to some degree. I'll go see a movie because I want to zone out. I mean, it should be fine, but if you watch movies all day, that's probably too much, right? So back to the breathing. Why the fuck am I teaching you this before any other art practices? Because if you can't do this, it's going to feel real weird to make art because it's going to come from a place of needing the art to save you rather than being okay and just wondering what you want to discover. Instead of like, oh no, I got to be art so I can be an artist so I can put it on Instagram so I can sell things. Fucking Jesus Christ, So whether you want to be a better artist or you want to be a better activist, you still need the same thing, air and water. and like relative safety. And if you can't have safety around you because the people around you are freaking out, you need to figure some shit out. The breathing is the first step. And so you breathe in slowly through your nose, but forcefully, slowly but forcefully. And that's key. You need to have some kind of doing process. You need to feel like you're doing something a little bit. Okay, so that's the inhale. You're doing something. Because humans like to feel like they have agency, so we should do something. So that's the first step, is doing something mindfully and with like a kind of sense of purpose. You have a real power. So you breathe in very slowly, but you also breathe in forcefully a little bit. It's like, because to really get down there deep, you got to work a little bit, and you got to like sniff in a little bit, and you got to get ready, right? And then you do that, you hold the breath just a little bit. And during that exhalation is when you can receive the benefit of your work. And that receiving is what we're also needing to practice. Because we practice the doing, but then we have to practice the not doing and the letting happen. And the receiving of the information, receiving of the feeling, receiving of the energy, receiving of the vitality, right? And as we do this breathing, slow in. Really let that happen as long as it needs to happen. I'm hurrying up because I'm online and it's very weird to talk into a fucking phone. But what you want to be able to do is get from there to a full exhalation that feels natural, like you're not holding anything back, but you're not pushing either. And then repeat the process maybe a few more times, because you're going to want to move on to something that is a little more natural. Okay? And natural would be you don't necessarily hold the breath. You only hold the breath when you need that like kind of build up, release kind of feeling. But then you just move into like deeply breathing and exhaling. And then it can be all in the nose, or it can be nose inhale and mouth exhale. And you're trying to go deep, but you're trying to oxygenate the system. When you're doing this oxygenation of the system, a few pointers, okay? Because it just seems very basic, and it's kind of, you might drift off and feel bored and go into a trance. I don't want you to do that. I want you to stay alert, because you're going to want to be able to do this when you're marching, when you're protesting, when you're online watching all this nonsense unfold. So, and that is, wherever you feel pain. So this is the hard part, and this is where you separate people that want easy shit just done for them and people who are proactive and willing to do what they need to do to move to a better position or a better state of mind, right? This is the difference. When you're doing the regular breathing, after you've done a little bit of this inhaling, sighing, kind of holding thing that I just outlined, and you do regular breathing, which is like deep inhalation, you know, you're just really focusing on the breath. You're not trancing out. You're really with the breath. You're going to start to find places in the body that don't feel good. And that means pain, okay? Pain and fear and hunger. Hunger is like desire or feeling like you'll never have enough or really wanting something to happen and you're so mad if you don't get it happen, right? So that's what I say that's what I mean when I say hunger. Hunger is like desire for your preferences to be met. And it's intense and it can really fuck you up. But you're going to encounter these three things, these three forces in the body: pain, fear, and hunger. And they're very interconnected, so I don't need to spend a lot of time pretending that they're separate. But for most people, we can boil it down to pain, fear, and hunger. Even if you think grief and rage are really what you're dealing with, let me just push you a little bit to break down your grief and your particular unique state of grief and your particular unique state of rage into pain, fear, and hunger. Actually locate those forces underneath the grief and rage cycle, okay? So that's sort of like a mind game that you can play with yourself. But as you encounter pain in the body, and you're breathing this way, and you remember you have the first breathing too that you can go back to at any time, okay? What you're going to want to do is you're going to want to breathe into the places that hurt, like as if, just same way that you're breathing down, all the way down lower in the belly button, but you're going to want to breathe into the place. So let's say your knee hurts and you think, I can't breathe into my knee. Well, the human mind is really fascinating, and you can actually breathe deeply and direct that breath into the knee. And as you release the exhale, you sort of imagine that stuff like gas is coming out of your knee or smoke or something. And as you do this, different parts of your body will call on you for attention. They will call on you to be with them in this particular way that is not about, oh, I'm so hurt. No. Just deal with, like, breathe into it, breathe out of it. So that's step one. You're going to work with the pain directly with the breath. You're not going to amplify the pain, but you're going to touch it. You're going to move through it like a breeze going through an old musty house. Once you've played with that a little bit, remember, keep the smile, tongue on the roof of your mouth, as much as you can. You're going to switch it so that it's like you inhale from the place that hurts. So as you're breathing in, obviously you're breathing in from your nose, but you imagine that you're breathing in through the place that feels bad. So let's just try it. Right now, I've got pain in my left trapezius and in my lower back, so I have some choices. But I'm going to breathe in and out through those places. And so whatever you're doing, as you breathe, you might not know immediately, so just breathe and sort of check in. But as you breathe, any place that's tight, any place that hurts, any place that's sad, any place that feels bad, any place that feels angry, you're breathing in to that place, through it like a house that's musty out the window, or you can switch to breathing in through that place, and then of course out the other side, whatever that is. Okay, we'll do 5 of these. Let's do 5 of these. Wait, if you need to burp, this is other things. So if you never need to burp or yawn or fart during this process, you just have to deal with that first. You have to do those things. So if you need to go to the bathroom, if you need to burp, yawn, that's very key. Don't hold that back. I just am not doing that because I'm on this call. So 5 times in and out through places that feel bad or hurt or whatever. Let's go. One more. All right. So you should feel a difference. Some people's pain patterns are very persistent. They're neurologically trained into your system. So it takes a long time to sometimes rewire it, and that's totally fine. We're not looking for perfection. We're just looking to be able to do this without anybody's assistance and without any perfect conditioning. Which is to say, you need to be able to figure out how to do this when you're stressed out at any time. This is the key that I can't give you. I can only come on and say this is how the method works. These are some techniques. But the implementation, the timing of implementation, that's going to be on you to figure out how you can just stop at any time and do some breathing and do the inner smile, do all the stuff I've talked about. There's a lot of little micro techniques in here, okay? And develop the ability to create a physiological yawn or a physiological sigh and the descending wave and that extra circulation. For some of you, you're going to need more pressure. And that's why laying down, getting some tennis balls or lacrosse balls or massage balls and rolling around is going to help you do this exercise maybe. For some people, a hot shower is going to help because the skin is getting a lot of proprioceptive feedback. And one more thing, one more micro technique is we just practice breathing in and out through a particular place, like a acupressure point, right? It's like, oh, I really want that. It's really right there. Okay. So what if I breathe in and out from there, you know? So you're focusing your attention deliberately. You see what I'm saying? It's deliberately focusing your attention. Your attention is no longer hijacked. You have to deliberately focus your attention. So I've taught you that, but now there's a sort of meta breathing that you can do. And we'll do that to finish up, okay? So we've done sort of point or localized breathing, very specific kinds of things. The last one is, they call it sometimes 10 direction breathing, whole body breathing, skin breathing. There's many different names for it. But what you want to do is you want to sense your whole body as one unit, not a bunch of individual things. The entire body as one perfectly connected unit of being. So feel it on purpose. Attention. You have to note, you have to make your attention do this, right? So you feel everything at once, the entirety of it all, the entire structure, boom, all the organs, all the skin at the same time. And then when you do some breathing, I don't necessarily want you to focus on counting or anything like that. You're just going to do some normal breathing, whatever your version of normal breathing is, but you're going to put your attention on the whole self and the skin, and you're going to imagine that you're breathing in and out of the skin, as if the skin was lungs, or maybe an image that might help you is that every pore on your skin is like a little nostril. Whatever image helps you do it, okay? So we're going to do this for 5 times. It's called whole body breathing. And you can feel your feet on the floor, whatever you got to do, rock back and forth. If you have to if you have to get up and walk around, that's totally fine, but I'm going to sit here. So we'll do 5 of these and then we'll kind of wrap up. All right, here we go. Restarting. Let's just do one more because people are different places. Okay, so just to wrap up and just to complete it all. I gave you 3 phases of breathing. You can mix those up any way you want. They don't have to be in that order. That's just the order I presented them. Whenever you do any kind of breathing exercise, you need to be able to know what kind of breathing helps you. There's more than these 3 kinds of breathing. There's so many more. There's one where you breathe in and out of your mouth very rapidly. I mean, there's tons of breathing, but the main thing is, how are you using your attention? Right? That's really key. How are you using your attention? Where is your attention located? How are you paying attention? And then the second is just, how are you able to do this at any time? Simply, and feel the difference. Feeling the difference is key, because when you're really stressed out, you're not going to remember much. You're going to feel weird and bad, and you're going to start spinning around. And you need to have a practice that you can do at this point in our lives multiple times a day. There's no question that these practices are becoming not just like, ooh, I can learn breathwork certification in a weekend. Like, no. I'm not talking about learning to be a breathwork athlete. I'm talking about just raising the standard. The bar has been so lowered. The bar has been lowered so far in our culture that we think that people with the modicum, like the barest of skills, is an expert master. And that's just foolish. Like, real super experts, we don't even need to talk about them. They're just over there doing their thing. It takes them years, 20 years. But what I'm talking about is just, how do we start just by understanding that there's a baseline? You don't have to call it a name. You don't call it pranayama. You don't call it qigong, because that already denotes some kind of strange status, some exotification of breathing that is just like, who cares? I don't care. I love it, but I don't care. And then we can get to the place where we can feel things like an animal feels it. When the cat and the dog are regulating their nervous system, there's no name for it. They don't have a religion based on it. They're just listening to the body, and the body is responding, and they're doing the things that gets the body to feel like they need to feel, whatever that is in that moment. Because it's not about being neutral all the time. We have to be able to activate our nervous systems to fight and defend ourselves. And then we also have to be able to relax and cooperate and listen and make art and do fun stuff and figure out what hasn't been invented yet. We have to do both of that. We have to fight, we have to flee sometimes, we have to fight sometimes, we have to, make love sometimes, we have to chill out and be alone sometimes, we need more breadth of our experience. And doing this kind of work long term gets you to a place where you might be able to talk to spirits of the land, or have a meditative trance, then your ancestors visit you, or something like that. It doesn't matter if that happens or not. I'm just saying we have to build from a functional base. And if your functional baseline, which is fucking breathing, eating, these are basics, right? If you don't breathe right, you don't eat right. It's kind of a messy situation, right? We've got to get our digestion right. We've got to get our hygiene right. But one of the easiest things to do for everyone on these calls, and I'm serious, because I can't go and I can't figure out your, your whole nutritional outlook. You're going to need to go to see a doctor or something like that. You know what I'm saying? You have to go look at that yourself. But with breathing, you can just take something simple that you're already doing and you can build on it. You can just take something simple that you're already doing, right? And it doesn't have to be spiritual for you. It doesn't have to mean anything if you don't want it to mean anything. You should just have a feeling that you can at any time pause, breathe, reset your system a little bit, and then move to the next thing that you have to do, or rest if you need to rest, or whatever you need to do, right? We're not going to solve all of our issues and all of our trauma with just a breathing technique. But I just look around and I see how it doesn't seem like a lot of people even have this knowledge. It doesn't seem like a whole bunch of people are practicing this. So I just am here, little knocking on the window of the internet, being like, does anyone see that this is actually important? Like, we need to be able to take care of ourselves and not have a whole bunch of things in the way of doing that. And I know that there's tons of issues with access to resources, but I'm pretty sure everyone watching this is breathing every day. And I'm pretty sure all of you are drinking water every day. And I'm pretty sure all of you are going to sleep every day. So when we start with some basics, we can build a really robust baseline that we can come back to often. And then when life hits us with curveballs, we actually know that we are not lost because we have these touchstones. Oh, I'm breathing. I can breathe. I can deal with this information. I'm noticing the information is stopping my breathing. All right, I need to breathe a little bit on purpose. Taking this information, maybe I need to turn away for a little bit. But the point is that we need to remember how powerful bodies and land actually are, and how much we can do. Like, our agency is not limited to a kind of political activism. That is a part of it, for sure, to be citizens together. But what I just noticed is, like, there's not a lot of room to be animals and people together anymore because everyone wants to fuck it up with their ideology. And their ideology is usually based on their codependent trauma patterns. So it's like, I don't really want to talk about fucking ideology with people because they don't even know how to breathe. So if you don't know how to breathe and root into the earth and actually expand your system and increase your circulation, the conversation's probably going to be a bit shit, it's going to be a bit shit. So hopefully that was helpful. This will be recorded, hopefully, and saved onto the Instagram. Maybe later I'll decide to go into the more stuff that I was talking about before with the decolonizing of the artwork and the strategies for sort of narrative storytelling and re-narrativizing and stuff like that. But I'm also struggling with figuring out how to best have a reciprocal relationship with the audience, because it doesn't really feel that great for me anymore. Feels very unequal kind of vibes. So, I guess the last thing is, if you're interested in supporting the work that I do, I have a Venmo and a PayPal that you can donate to. I have tons of free stuff that I've been doing for years, and I like doing free things for people, but it is getting a little tiresome, I think, to sort of build a stable community around this work that actually has resources. So, those are larger topics that are just they're really difficult to kind of to sort of deal with. But in the meantime, we have the basics. So thank you all so much for attending. I hope that as you're doing whatever it is you're doing to get through the day, you will remember that you can take a few moments to actually breathe with the earth, with the air, and it doesn't have to have a great story. It's just a feeling. It's just an experience. You don't need to have a fucking narrative about it. You don't need to create another fiction on top of all the other fictions that we are sort of sinking inside of. It's choking us. You can just have the experience of breathing and the attention and where the breathing is going in the body, and it doesn't have to mean anything other than that. Just have the experience. All right. blessings to everyone, blessings to all our relations, blessings to all the folks all over the world who are suffering needlessly because of power mad, power hungry people. All right, folks. Talk to you later.